Hello, Internet. It is I, the Malik Aaron, and welcome back to Box Office Recap. So, February. it was, it sure happened. It was very strange. Like, the month started weak, then it got weaker, then it got a lot stronger, then ended on a real meh note. So, it was a strange roller coaster ride. Um, of all the movies that came out, there are only two I would really call hits, and one of them certainly is an Ant-Man 3. So, yeah, it was weird. So, let's talk about them. Well, actually, before we talk about the February movies, let's talk about two things first. Two minor things. First, you have BTS. They had like another concert thing, movie, experience, whatever you want to call it. They had one last year, but I believe that was like one day only. Here was like a weekend, and it made like 5 million for the weekend, which I say that's pretty good considering lack of advertising. It was only like a little over 1,000 theaters, so I say that's pretty all right. And it definitely shows that K-pop, there's a big audience in the U.S. for K-pop. And this definitely proves that. So I wanted to talk about that, and also the Chosen season 3 finale. I thought his performance was very interesting. Now, this is not the first time I've talked about the Chosen. I talked about it in my November recap. I didn't make a prediction for it because I don't do predictions for Fathom Events movies. I just don't. They're too weird to cover, so I just don't cover them. And um yeah, and for that, I gotta find it. Uh, Chosen season 3. Okay, Chosen. It was Chosen season 3, episodes 1 and 2. It opened with over $8 million and it made 14 million during its limited release. And I'm like, wow, that's really impressive. So, yeah, I guess I kind of expected something similar to happen with the season 3 finale, but no. That didn't quite happen. I mean, it was number one that Thursday on the second, then it went up a bit on Friday, and then it just fell off so hard. 65% drop. Not like for the weekend, not for like weekend to weekend. We're talking day to day here. 65% from Friday to Saturday. That has to be a record. um, for biggest Saturday drop off or the biggest biggest Saturday drop off of all time. I don't think there's anything else that could really come close to that. Um, yeah, and then it just fell off a cliff immediately afterwards. And this movie now has a record, not exactly a record you want to have, but it has the new record for the most front-loaded opening weekend of all time. Friday's share was 62.6%. It beat Triple R from last year. So, yeah. Just wanted to mention that because I thought it would be pretty interesting to talk about. So, yeah. But for now, we get on to the actual February movie. So, as usual, I'm going to compare my own personal predictions to what actually happened because I find that fun. So, let's get started. February 3rd. So at this point, Avatar: The Way of Water was number one for 7 weeks straight, just like its predecessor. But at this point, people were like, okay, there has to be a new number one movie. Something has to beat Avatar 2. And two movies were able to do that. 80 for Brady and Knock at the Cabin. But both did pretty in the grand scheme of things. So first let's talk about 80 for Brady. My prediction was like 12 to 15 million opening weekend, and it hit that 12.7. So I was accurate. I was around the money, and its total. I thought it would do like 40 to 60 million. I thought this would have like decently strong legs because, well, a movie like this, like with its target demographic being older women, that's not the type of demographic that shows up day one and never again. Like, they don't rush to see movies. It's like a long game. when it comes a long game when it comes to performances. I mean, Book Club had a similar debut and it had pretty long legs. I thought the same would kind of happen here, but that didn't really come. It really didn't happen. It's only made like 38 million, so it might crawl. It may or may not crawl past 40, but yeah, it'll barely reach like the low end of my final prediction. I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure why its legs were so short. I mean, its second weekend, it felt like 54%. I mean, sure, it was dealing with the Super Bowl, and that's going to hurt any movie. But you think with a movie where, like, the target audience, they don't watch the Super Bowl. And this movie is centered around football. It's about Super Bowl, what, 51? That'd be 51, right? I'm pretty sure it's 51. Like Roman numerals, like after 30, I get real confused. I think like 40 after that. Once you start getting L's in there, then I'm confused. I'm pretty sure this is 51. But and Tom Brady, like you think all of that would help it during the Super Bowl weekend, but no, not the case. And then his legs after that were pretty bleh, pretty mediocre. I'm not sure what caused this. I really don't have an answer. But I mean, it's gross overall. It's okay for like the movie, or what the movie is, but compared to its budget, it's not so great. It costs like $28 million, so I mean, it does have apparently it will open internationally in some markets, but the thing is, football, or I'm sorry, American football. Need to emphasize that American football doesn't play well outside of the States. It's popular here, but it's not popular in other countries. So I don't expect much from the international market. But I mean, it's not like a huge disaster or anything. Like, I imagine this movie will eventually break even when it hits like streaming, PVOD, and like ancillary markets. So it's not a I wouldn't call it a flop, but I wouldn't call it a hit either. It's in that weird mediocre territory. So, yeah. Uh yeah, but it wasn't the movie that beat Avatar: The Way of Water. No, it was number 2 that weekend. Number 1 was Knock at the Cabin, which also didn't do too great. um so yeah, Knock at the Cabin, M. Night Shyamalan's latest movie. I predicted an opening weekend of like 15 to 20 million, I think. Yeah. And a final total of like 40 million. It didn't hit my projection. If only opened to 14 million. I was at, ugh, that's not great. And its total so far is 35 million. So it's a little bit off from my 40 million final prediction. So yeah, so what caused this? What caused this underperformance? I guess a lack of interest in it. It wasn't like as I guess the premise wasn't as alluring as like other Shyamalan movies, like comparison, like say The Village, Signs, The Visit, or Split, or even Old to an extent. Like they had like a bit more eye-catching like premises, premises that made you go, "Oh, this looks interesting. I might want to watch that." Not quite the case here, although I was interested in watching this, and I did watch it. It was weird. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. I'm more mid on it, but I think I lean more towards positive than negative when it comes to it being mid. I mean, Old, I don't even know how to feel about that movie. It's been 2 years, and I still don't know if I think it's good or bad. I don't know. I don't have an answer. But this, I think it leans a little more towards good, although the ending was kind of uh lackluster. Because, spoiler alert for Knock at the Cabin, like the ending, like with this being a Shyamalan movie, I mean, this dude has made a career out of twist endings. You expect a twist ending, but I guess the twist is that there's no twist. It plays out like so straightforward, and I'm just like, huh, that's weird and really out of character for Shyamalan. But Like, it was a weird ending. But uh yeah, but so I can look at you can look at this performance. You actually look at it in two different ways. On like the negative side, this is Shyamalan's worst performing movie ever since The Sixth Sense, which was like his wasn't technically his first movie, but the public deems it his first movie, so or society deems it his first movie. So yeah, ever since The Sixth Sense, this is bottom, right at the bottom. And yeah, I mean, ugh, that's not super great. But on the other hand, it did beat Avatar. Shyamalan can say that he broke Avatar's streak, Avatar 2's streak. And the movie, it didn't cost too much. It cost like what, $20 million. Apparently, that was out of Shyamalan's own pocket. So it's not like Universal's going to suffer a huge loss. I mean, they won't even suffer a loss because the movie only made like 53 million. So it will be technically successful, but it won't be a hit. It'll be more of a modest hit. But yeah, I mean, it's really it. um, yeah, it didn't reach my expectations. Like, it's not a hit, but it's not a flop. It's a bit more of a hit than 80 for Brady, technically. So yeah, but both movies did very mediocre, and February didn't get off to a hot start. And you think things would improve the next weekend, but no, they got worse. A whole lot worse. So let's go to February 10th. Super Bowl weekend. It's usually a very bad weekend for movies because you literally just lose a whole day out of the weekend. Because nobody's going to the movies that Sunday. And while the actual Super Bowl was a success, I believe it had like 119 million viewers, maybe the best in like a few years in terms of viewership. I know everyone was talking about it, mainly Rihanna's halftime performance and all the controversy that erupted from that. And I've heard like all the a good amount of the Super Bowl ads were well received. So yeah, the Super Bowl was a success, but Super Bowl weekend, disaster. Disaster for the box office. But let's go through these really well. Let's just go through this very quickly because who cares about this? Consecration. I predicted an opening weekend of like 500,000 to $1 million and like 1 to 2 million total. It only got to 500,000 total. Opened with like 300,000, and then it just fell off the face of the earth. After that, fell 94% the next weekend, mainly because it lost all its theaters. And yeah, no one knew this movie existed. I barely knew this movie existed till the last minute. Nobody cared about it. Nobody watched it, and that's it. So nothing else to say. Let's move on. Okay, to Magic Mike's Last Dance, the movie I consider to be the biggest L of February, in my humble opinion. Ooh, where do I start with this? So my prediction opening weekend, I predicted it would open with only 10 million, which compared to the other Magic Mics, which I'm gonna display here, Magic Mike, that would still be really, really bad. I mean, Magic Mike opened with like 39 million back in 2012, and the sequel, Magic Mike Double XL or XXL, only opened with like 12 million, but that was like a 5-day weekend. It was weird. But yeah, 10 million, like that wouldn't have been very good at all. And I think it's total. I predicted like $30 million, but this movie it couldn't even go past that low bar, that very low bar, and it did a lot worse, way worse than I thought. It opened with 8.3 million, which was a number one for the weekend. When your number one movie only makes $8 million, something is wrong, very wrong, and and it just shows that the box office is in a shit state. It really does. I mean, this is like we haven't had a number one movie make this little money since Top Gun Mavericks like 15th weekend back in September. That was like what, $6 million, I think. I'm pretty sure it was 6 million. Before that was like the weekend before was the Invitation. That was like 6.8. So, oof, that was a dark time period, like late August, early September. And this is no better than that. So, and the reason why it opened so low is because Warner Brothers made a very strange decision that I still don't understand. They only opened this in like 1,500 theaters, like opening weekend. Like, I don't, I don't get why. I really don't. I mean, look, sometimes you don't need a high theater count to make money. A good amount of Tyler Perry movies prove that. Borat proved that its opening weekend. Yeah, Borat, Flight. Um, what else? Shoot, the Hannah Montana concert back in 2008. That opened with like $31 million. That's still the biggest opening weekend ever for Super Bowl. Like no movie has topped it since. Probably because no one wants to try. I mean, some movies did try. I mean, movies like Dear John, Taken, Chronicle, Woman in Black, Warm Bodies. But then after that, the studios just gave up. They absolutely gave up. It's like they didn't even attempt to try. Like I don't. It's weird, but yeah. Ugh, ugh. Yeah, you can open big with less theaters, but the demand has to be there. There was no demand for this movie. You think there'd be some, but nope. It only had like a 5K per theater average, and then it doubled its theater count the next weekend. Its per theater average fell off, fell like 2/3, which is horrible. That just shows you that that audience it just was they were just not coming. They were not coming to the cinema, and now it's only made 25 million. So, oh, so why? And not to mention its opening weekend was like stupid front loaded, mainly because of Super Bowl. Went from number one to number two to number five over the weekend, which is a big yikes. And I believe it's one of them had one of the more front load opening weekends ever. Let me see. Where's yes, 49.9% was from Friday. Ugh, just that's not exactly great. Although the Magic Mike movies have been pretty front loaded with their opening weekends, so it's not a huge surprise, but it still doesn't look good. So what caused this really? The 8-year gap between Double XL and Last Dance didn't help anything because when it comes to sequels, I've usually say ideally there needs to be a 2 to 3 year gap. Well, although some sequels come out way sooner than that, some like a year, some like even 6 months. Some can be real extreme, like that, and that's fine. But once you go past three, once you reach like four, that's where it's getting risky when you make a sequel 4 years after the first. But after that, you're just like, why even do this? Like, you can only justify that if your predecessor is like super well liked, has like a big following or something, that are willing to wait that all that time. But Magic Mike just didn't have that following, and it just the box office shows that. And ugh, like, and as you know, like this was supposed to be an HBO Max movie, like House Party back in January. This was supposed to be an HBO Max movie, but it was made theatrical because good test screenings. Though I imagine that the success of Dog and The Lost City last year, from both which are Channing Tatum movies, that definitely influenced the decision to make this theatrical. And yeah, and then like you think they would try hard. I mean, it's coming out Valentine's Day weekend. That's prime time for a movie like this, like appealing to a female audience. And Valentine's Day is one of the best holidays of the year when it comes to box office. Like, every movie benefits from Valentine's Day, even if the movie has nothing to do with romance. But that didn't happen. Like, they just didn't try. They completely dropped the ball with marketing. Like, I saw like no ads on YouTube. Like, apparently they were only doing like ads like on their TV stations, like TV channels. that they're under the Warner Brothers Discovery umbrella, and it's just I'm just like, why even make, if you're gonna make this theatrical, why are you? It feels like you're sabotaging it. Like, put in the damn effort. Because if you don't put in the effort, you get low results, and that's what we got here. So yeah, and just comparing this to the other Magic Mike movies, it looks pathetic. It's abysmal. Not even like obviously compared to the like it made less in they made its total. It's less than what Magic Mike made in 2 days. Not even three, 2 days. And Magic Mike XXL made more in 5 days than Magic Mike's Last Dance made total. And Magic Mike XXL, that already fell off big from the first movie, so that should tell you everything. It really should. Yeah. This is an undisputed L right here. So we got House Party and Magic Mike's Last Dance. They both bombed in theaters. I'm really worried about Evil Dead Rise now. His chances are really plummeted because of these two results. But who knows? Maybe Warner Brothers Discovery will treat that right. Maybe they'll give it a chance to succeed. But this is not working. It's not working at all. Maybe I don't have a big enough galaxy brain to understand their game plan. But from like my perspective, yeah, it's like they're sabotaging these movies. Like, you might as well make them day to date. HBO Max. You might as well put them a part of the HBO Max experiment, because they're not doing much better when it comes to the movies that are actually a part of that experiment. So, yeah, big L right here. Easily the biggest L in the month. And then finally, for Super Bowl weekend, Titanic, the 25th anniversary. This is the third re-release of Titanic, but the second major re-release. Because the first one was in 2012. That was like for the 15th anniversary. And that was like during the 3D boom, where everything had to be 3D. Either new movies had to be 3D, or old movies had to be converted to 3D. And this was one of those old movies converted to 3D. And its re-release went really well. It made like, what? It added another 58 million to Avatar's total. Not, goddamn. Titanic's total. Okay. Ooh. I don't know how I slipped up on that. But yeah. So, yeah. And so, actually 11 years later, we are here with the 25th anniversary. And it opened with like 6.7 million. My prediction was like between 5 and 10. So I was like, yay, I was right. But then my final prediction was like 20 to 30, and I bombed on that. Because this movie didn't really go anywhere after that weekend. It only made like, doing the math here, less than 15 million total with this new re-release. Like, after the first weekend, it fell off. Look at these numbers: 64, 71, 73. It died. I mean, not like this result matters, because it's literally just gravy. It's just more money in James Cameron's pocket. Because apparently 2 billion is just not enough. Needs more. But yeah, this re-release, it could have gone better, but it doesn't matter, because it's just gravy for, this movie. I mean, basically, James Cameron was more or less competing against himself between this and Avatar: The Way of Water coming out around. I mean, Avatar: The Way of Water was still in theaters. It was still making a bit of cash. So, I believe, let me look at the result for that weekend. Let me see if it shows. Okay. Look at that. Number 2 and number 3. He was literally competing against himself. Like, that is competing against yourself. And look at Puss in Boots 2, still doing well that weekend. That was like the only bright spot the whole weekend. That weekend was pure depression. And the second weekends of 80 for Brady and Knock at the Cabin didn't help anything. And Knock at the Cabin felt like 62%, which is not ideal at all. But that's far from like the worst drop of the month, at least when it comes to mainstream movies. We have yet to get to that. Um, but yeah, the Titanic re-release, its performance didn't matter all that much, so it's like whatever. And that was it for February 10th. So, bad time for the movies. But thankfully, things will get a lot better the next weekend, February 17th. Kinda. Well, first we have to talk about Marlowe here very fast. I predicted what an opening week of like 800,000 to a million because it's like midweek release went so poorly, but it opened with like 1.8 million over the opening weekend. I was like, okay, this exceeded my rock bottom expectations. Expected worse, but it did better ish. But my final prediction was like 3 to 4 million, and it's a lot closer to that, which just tells you word of mouth is just his performance after this is abysmal. Because over like 5 days, it made like 2.5 million, and I guess for the 6 day weekend, like 2.8 million. Well, I guess for the 4 day weekend, because it was President's Day weekend, its second weekend just disaster. Fell 68%. And that's it. That was just it. It was game over. It was out of the cinema. I wasn't surprised about this. I mean, Liam Neeson, like his movies have not been doing well at all the last few years. You can't blame COVID for that anymore. And this wasn't even like an action movie. This was like a mystery movie, I think. I think like one of those like no, not even a mystery movie, not like a whodunit. Maybe it's more like yeah, it was just like a mystery flick and like mystery like crime flick, and I'm just like that does not appeal to his core audience at all, and it sure didn't, and nobody watched it. So yeah, well, we're done with that. Now, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Okay, so good news. This movie won the month. Bad news. Did it though? Did it? Did it really? I mean, okay. In terms of raw dollars, this movie was head and shoulders, actually head, shoulders, knees, and toes above everything else. Okay, it wasn't even close. It wasn't even a competition. But on its own merits, it did weak. It's done real weak. I'm about to explain why. So, opening weekend, I had a wide range for this. I was like, it was somewhere in the realm of 90 million to 110 million. All I knew is that it was going to open bigger than Ant-Man and the Wasp from 2018. I knew that. I just didn't know by how much. And it hit right in between my prediction, like with 106 million for the 3 day weekend. I was like, okay, that's pretty good. Like, that's a lot higher than the other Ant-Man movies. I'm about to show you here. So, opening weekend, like 57, 75, 106. Like 106 is a huge jump from those, a noticeable jump. So you're like, okay, that's great. That's great-ish. I mean, it's not amazing, but but for Ant-Man standards and February standards, pretty good. So I was like, okay, I guess I can consider this a winner. Then week 2 happened, and all that winner talk died when I saw the results. This movie fell 70% week 2. 70%. It's Friday to Friday drop was like 82%, and it just 70%. That is the single worst drop for an MCU movie. That is worse than Doctor Strange 2. That is worse than Thor: Love and Thunder. That is worse than Spider-Man No Way Home. That is worse than Black Widow. Worse than all of them. Is the undisputed low for the MCU, which is just that boggled me. I was like, God damn. That is one, not even for the MCU, that's just one of the worst drops ever for like a comic book movie. I mean, technically some have dropped worse. I mean, Dark Phoenix and Morbius immediately come to mind, but this is this is terrible. You can't spin this, and there's no way you can spin that number in a positive way. You can't. You just can't. And then the third weekend wasn't much better. It fell another 60%. Ugh. So this movie has fallen like a stone, man. And it's now made 190 million domestically. I believe my final total was like 220 to 250. I don't know if it's gonna reach that anymore. Like these declines really tell me it's not gonna reach it, but it might. It might crawl to that. But ew. So what caused this? What caused such a catastrophic performance? And not to mention worldwide is really weak too. There's no chance. I don't see it. There's not a damn chance this is gonna reach 500 million. I'd be shocked if it still reached that. But what caused this? Well, reviews were bad, pretty darn bad. I believe the worst of the MCU. I think it's still tied with the Eternals as far as I know. But yeah, word of mouth was not good. You've been seeing it online. I've barely seen. I barely seen anyone even defend this movie. People just saying it's just not good. I mean, I saw it. It took me weeks. It took me like a good 2 weeks for me to watch this movie because I had to like will myself to watch it because I was like, I am not, this is gonna be bad. Just like how I had to will myself to watch Jurassic World Dominion. I had to like hype myself up, be like, okay, I can do this. I got through the Eternals. There's no way this could be worse than that. I'm gonna do this. And I did watch it. And it's not good. I mean, it's better than the Eternals, but only because the Eternals really bored me. This had more of my interest, but oh my god, I can see why everyone is feeling the MCU like fatigue. Like it is hitting everybody hard, and it's now hit me pretty hard because oh man, just watching this was just I felt nothing. I didn't feel happiness. I didn't feel anger. I felt nothing. Absolutely nothing. I was just sitting there with a bored expression on my face. Just a dull expression on my face. It was just ugh. The only part in the movie I really liked was like Kang, but even then, like he was the only thing that really got my attention. I was able to keep my attention. But it's just, even then, like, he had his bad moments. Especially at the post-credit scene, I was just like, oh no. Don't even get me started on MODOK. Oh. I saw images of MODOK, and I was like, that they can't be serious with him. Like, that is not his actual design, and it was his actual design. And like, his design, like, it just screamed uncanny valley for me, like to the point where I wanted him off the screen. I wanted him to go away. And like his whole character is like I know MODOK is kind of like a goofy character. Like his design is really goofy, but like I think the movie it took it too far. And I wanted him gone. And then like everyone else felt like they were just kind of phoning it in. And it's just okay, Michelle Pfeiffer she was way better than she had any right to be in the movie. Probably because like the movie kind of sort of revolves around her. But yeah, just this whole movie just felt like why do this? Like where's the heart? Where's the soul? Because I'm not seeing neither in this movie. But yeah, I did not have a good time watching Quantumania. It's definitely one of the worst Marvel movies. Easily. Maybe the worst. Maybe it's tied with the Eternals. Or maybe it's a little step above Eternals. But yeah, anywho, that's my thoughts on Ant-Man 3. Word of mouth was bad. As you can just tell, like these drops indicate word of mouth is toxic. And it didn't help that Ant-Man, like the series, like it's considered like the series, like, oh yeah, that exists. That's how people view the Ant-Man movies. I mean, the first Ant-Man is pretty good. The second Ant-Man is kind of okay-ish. Although I did rewatch like the clip of like when Scott in the second movie where his suit was malfunctioning and he was like stuck as like a toddler, like the toddler size. I thought that scene's still pretty funny. But Yeah, that movie was just kind of okay-ish, and this was just bad. And like the box office, like Ant-Man, like if you look at the numbers by themselves, like Ant-Man, you're like, okay, these numbers aren't bad. I mean, 500 million, 600 million, that's pretty great. But compared to the MCU, it's near the bottom, man. It is near right just down there. um I gotta go to worldwide. There we go. It's near the bottom. I mean, the first Ant-Man had made more than Thor, Shang-Chi, Eternals, Black Widow, Captain America, First Avenger, like Incredible Hulk. A lot of these are just like phase one movies. But yeah, near the bottom. Ant-Man the Wasp did better, but not that much better. It made less than Thor 2 and Doctor Strange, and then like everything else is just like we're going up to the billion range, the billion plus range. So it's near the bottom. So they're and the third movie, it's like right there. It'll surpass Shang-Chi, it'll surpass Thor, and I think that'll be it. So it's still near the bottom. So that's proof positive that most people don't give a damn about the Ant-Man movies. And I feel like people are just I'm sensing, I'm not even sensing, I'm just straight up seeing this growing dissent. This growing just apathy towards the MCU where people are just really bored of it, they're sick of it, they're just done with the formula. They're just done with it. And it's getting worse and worse and worse with like each movie since like phase 4. This is supposed to start phase 5, and oh my god, phase 5 is off to a pretty horrendous start. If this is how we're gonna start phase 5, I am ooh, it's gonna be a rough ride. And so this makes me think, is the MCU in trouble? Is the MCU in a death spiral? Most people would say yes. I mean, hell, I made a poll, like I did like I made a post, like a community post. I made a poll, it's like, is the MCU in trouble? And most people said yeah. Almost the whole thing said yeah. And but I'm not but at this point I am not gonna say the MCU is in a total death spiral. Not yet. I have to see how Guardians of the Galaxy 3 does in May, because that movie should be a hit. It has to be. I mean, it's the third movie and a well-liked, the first two movies were well-liked, made a ton of money, way more money than the Ant-Man movies. And they're near like the gross are near the upper echelon for the MCU. And it's James Gunn's MCU swan song, because now he's doing DC, like he's the co-head of like the DCU, that whole thing, the rebooted DCEU, whatever, new DC, the new DC movies. But Guardians 3 was already made, but was already filmed when that decision was made, so it's kind of awkward. But apparently the movie is going to have some finality to it, and yeah, it's going to start the summer, and I see it being a hit. If it's not a hit, if it bombs, then the MCU is fucked. It is absolutely fucked, because at this point, with Ant-Man 3's performance and with the performance of like all the other Phase 4 movies, well, minus No Way Home, because that was a runaway hit. It feels like the best case scenario is that people are going to start picking and choosing what MCU movies to watch, what people deem as essential, and everything else is just whatever. Worst case scenario is that people stop watching Marvel movies altogether, like they all start doing bad. Obviously, the second, you don't want worst case scenario, because that's going to kill the franchise. But we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, this is a red flag. This is a huge red flag for the whole series. Don't expect Ant-Man 4. I'm gonna say that. Don't expect Ant-Man 4. No chance they're gonna greenlight that after this result. So yeah, so basically Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, or Ant-Man 3, it's just like Black Adam, where Black Adam came out last October and it was the biggest movie of that month, but I'm sure as shit not gonna call it a winner. Not at all. No chance. And both movies are probably going to lose a little bit of money, or probably a lot of money. So yeah, ugh. But so yeah, after Ant-Man, we end with positivity. Okay? Because we had two movies come out, two movies that it was a coin toss to whether there'll be hits or not, but both managed to do really good. And those movies were Cocaine Bear and Jesus Revolution. Two movies that just oh, just it's amazing these two movies came out the same weekend because like they're such polar opposites. It's beautiful. So let's first talk about Cocaine Bear, the bigger movie of the two. So Cocaine Bear. So opening weekend I predicted it would open with like 15 to 20 million, I think. And its total would be like 40 to 60 million. I was I was kind of worried about this movie and Jesus Revolution, but especially this because like a movie like this with the title, the premise, the trailers, the poster, all of it, it just screams niche, like super niche. And it feels like it would only appeal to people like it's like one of those like internet favorite movies where like the snakes on a plane pretty much like that. Well, that movie was like super hyped up by the internet, and that movie just completely underperformed. I was worried the same thing was gonna happen here, but no, this movie exceeded my expectations. Opened with $23 million, and it's now made 44 million the last 2 weeks. And the second weekend, it felt like 52%, which is pretty solid considering this a genre flick. Like it's not exactly it's a very much a genre flick. Doesn't exactly have super wide appeal. So yeah, its performance is pretty solid so far. So it's already reached my 40 to 60 prediction. So yeah. And I did watch it because I mean with a movie like this, I have to watch it. Because it piqued my curiosity. And I saw it. I had a way better time watching this than Ant-Man 3. I can tell you that. This movie was a lot more fun, a lot more goofy. I believe like the first half, like the first two thirds were really strong, but the final third was kind of weak. But I mean, like when you saw the cocaine bear, when the bear started killing people, that's when the entertainment comes in. There was an amazing sequence, like the ambulance chase, like the whole sequence from beginning to end. 10 out of 10, loved it. Fantastic. If the whole movie was like that, this movie would be a masterpiece. But it's not, unfortunately. It's good, but it's not amazing. But yeah. And it's like for Elizabeth Banks, this was like a big recovery for her. I mean, after the disaster that was Charlie's Angels 2019, you'd think she would never direct another movie again. But she took on Cocaine Bear that was based off a true story that happened in my state, which is just wonderful. And she took the gamble and it paid off. So yeah. Yeah. And yeah, that's really it. I mean, it's a nice, solid mid-range hit. So yeah. And now for the last movie, Jesus Revolution, which also, like Cocaine Bear, it was like a real, like, it was at a real 50-50 chance of being a hit or not. Because, sure, like, faith-based movies, they can make money. But a lot of them don't. And you never know which ones are going to hit and which ones are going to flop. It's impossible. So, like, I didn't know what was going to happen. But I did predict an opening weekend of, like, 15 million. And a final total of, like, 40 to 60 million, just like Cocaine Bear. And it did reach over 15 million. And it's currently made, like, 33 million, like, the past 2 weeks. Its budget was, like, 15 million, so I imagine it's going to make a decent little profit. And it gets total, like, well, I guess where its performance, like, fell, like, 46%, which mainly because, like, its Friday numbers were, like, super inflated because it had like several days of previews, and that was fueled, and I fueled the Friday number, and that's why its opening weekend number it fell 32% day to day. But after that, it's done really well. So can't complain about this result too much. You really can't complain about it at all. It's done really well for what it is. I believe it's like the first faith-based movie to do well since the pandemic started. I think the last one to do well in my memory was, what was it? Oh god, Overcomer or something. I don't remember what it was. It was like in 2019. I'll find it. Faith-based film. Where 2019? Where is it? Overcomer. Yeah, that was like the last hit, and then we had nothing since. And so, yeah, I'm sure it's not gonna. It's likely not gonna match. Where is it? Where are you? I Can Only Imagine, which was made by the same people that opened bigger and it's made like 83 million. I don't see that happening, but its performance is still pretty darn good. No complaints. So yeah, I mean, like that weekend when Ant-Man 3 crumbled, like those two movies, they picked up the slack. I'd argue and because of that, I say they're the real winners of February. Easily. I mean, sure, Ant-Man made more money, but that thing's gonna lose money. Well, Cocaine Bear, that only costs like, what, $30 million, so it's about like 57 million. It'll surpass that. It'll be fine. And Jesus Revolution will also be fine, so yeah. Yeah. So there you go. That's February. Again, just a strange month to witness. But it was very interesting, though. It was strange but interesting. And now we're in March. March got off to a really good start. I mean, Creed 3 really shined. Operation Fortune did not. Not at all. I have a lot to say about Operation Fortune. Not only because of how bad it did at the box office, but because of what it did to my channel. Because it gave me a copyright strike for some bullshit reason. I'll go over that once we get to the March recap. I'll air all my grievances with it's been a real headache. And it just happened for no reason. But yeah, March got off to a decent enough start, and it's going to continue to be pretty solid throughout the whole month. I mean, especially like Creed 3's already done well. I imagine Scream 6 is going to do well, and I'm positive John Wick 4 is going to do well. Everything else, it is not looking too good. Even like Shazam 2, that I'm worried about that. Like legit worried. I don't think it's going to do well. And everything else is just like I don't know. The chances aren't very good, but March will be definitely be a month to look at. So I mean, it already is a month to look at, but yeah. But anywho, yeah, that's it. That's all. Make sure to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment, turn notifications, share the whole drill. Want to check out more videos like this? Got playlists on the homepage, all previous recap videos I've done on the channel. If you want to watch any of those, you can go right ahead. There's also box office predictions, where I predict box office for movies. You want to see like any of my predictions for any of the movies I've talked about here, like in detail. You know, you want to watch any of those to see like my thought process to how I thought they would perform. You want to watch any of those, you can go right ahead. There's also the canceled series where I go over all the movies that were supposed to come out but didn't. I believe I'm at 179. I don't know if I hit one. Did I hit 180? I need to check off screen. Let me see. Let me see. Where is it? God, where is it? Okay, 180. Yes, 180. We're talking about the Super Mario Brothers movie changing its date at the very last minute. But yeah, I've done 180 episodes, so if you want to watch any of the past cancel episodes of any of them from beginning to now, if you want to binge them all, go do it. Highly encourage it, so go do it. And yeah, that's it. That's all. I am out. Goodbye.